Welcome to Beyond the Transaction, a podcast focused on payments for the ISV and Fintech world. I'm your host, Todd Linden, and I'm CEO of Woodforest Acceptance Solutions. Each week, I'll sit down with leaders across payments and financial technology to unpack how real businesses scale through better data, smarter infrastructure, and aligned partnerships. If you care about how payments actually impact growth, you're in the right place.
So, Woodforest Acceptance Solutions, we are structured so different than pretty much every single competitor that we have. By being a subsidiary of Woodforest National Bank, I think there's a lot of advantages that come along with that people probably don't necessarily understand right off the bat. So, for companies, when an enterprise client or a middle market merchant is evaluating what they should be looking for, how does the bank relationship that we have really benefit them as a whole?
Oh, it's entirely important to those types of relationships. There's a couple of things that are unique about us, but I'll start by qualifying the fact that in the U.S., to be part of the system from a processing perspective, you must have a principal sponsor into the card brands, Visa and Mastercard mainly, right?
Does that
And
mean it needs to be a bank?
it has to be a bank, and there are a few that have been in the as a principal sponsor bank and acquiring bank for an extended period of time. And interestingly, Woodforest National Bank has is one of those. It's kind of on a from a tenure perspective, it's up there with like the Wells and the B of A's, which are obviously the genesis of Visa and Mastercard respectively. But Woodforest has been at it for a long time. As a result of being a principal sponsor for such a long time, they've built up a ton of regulatory credibility. And that's really important to your maneuverability, frankly, when it comes to the types of businesses that you do processing for and with, your ability to create different situations that become optimal situations for your clients, for your merchant clients, particularly in the middle market and enterprise market. So the bank's a real important player, just from a qualification perspective. And then on the second part of that, I think it's also really important to recognize that with Wood Forest and with the way that our relationship with them is dimensioned, we're able to provide different funding windows. We're able to provide from a merchant settlement perspective, we're able to provide a level of flexibility that doesn't necessarily exist when your bank partner, your bank sponsor is an arm's length or more away from the actual processing entity. So
So
uh,
things like next day funding, early funding.
yeah, next day funding is pretty common with the big sponsors, but the ability to go beyond that, the ability to have that one-to-one relationship to discuss different vertical dispositioning, different emerging market opportunities, having a relationship that's closely tied to your bank has just a ton of advantages, and they're advantages that allow you to be a lot more fluid in your approach to the marketplace.
So, in terms of competition, right? A lot of our competitors are independent companies or they're backed by private equity. From a leadership perspective, I mean, from a competitive perspective, rather, because we are backed by a bank, that does give us a lot of leverage that others don't necessarily have within the full suite that we offer at Wood Forest.
Yeah, I mean, I've been partnered, invested in, and I've been with the Wood Forest Group for a long time now, an extended period of time. So from that perspective, I'm just plain lucky. But yes, the ability to have, and it almost goes back to that regulatory credibility thing. When you have a bank that has that kind of history in payments. And they in issuing too, but in payments in my case and in Waz's case. And you have the ability to grow and build a business with your bank partner and your investors and in this kind of context, really having a firm understanding in what you're doing and a belief in what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build. And that's so important because it doesn't take a ton of selling a concept when you have people that are thoroughly involved and aware and interested in payments. So that's just it's a differentiator, but it's also just great fortune for us.
So when we talk about compliance and regulation, which is huge in fintech, as I very well know, there are industries that we cannot touch. But because we don't touch any of those, I would say, higher risk, that ultimately protects all of our business at a certain level, wouldn't you say?
It does, and bank oversight is ultimately responsible to regulators and the card brands for everything we do in payments. So that's the first and foremost obligation of all of us to protect the integrity of the system by protecting the consumers and the merchants and the financial system in general. But with Woodforest and was with our relationship with the bank and the way that we look and approach, and I'm going to use emerging markets a lot. I think that was being a embedded integrated payment company with the switch to issuer strategy that we have. I think it's really important for us to um, be able to approach new opportunities, emerging markets, different ways of orchestrating payments, new entries from an embedded payments perspective. Every day, the integrated payment business is becoming uh, bigger. It's greater scale, and the scale now is coming from the integrated payment world more than it's coming from new merchant opportunities on a kind of a one to one merchant basis. And so, with that being the climate of the day, the business climate of the day, having the ability to work alongside your bank oversight people and to provide a thoughtful, very thoughtful, well planned, an execution plan to enter into an emerging market or some sort of a new vertical with best practices, with the anticipation of building around any concern that may come down the road for, from a regulator perspective or from any kind of card brand, operating perspective is so useful because when we bring on these partnerships, we're able to guide those partnerships towards best practices. We're able to pave a road, a path for the vertical, and that does not necessitate us having to go back in some arbitrary way and yank the carpet out from under somebody because we didn't do enough pre-planning in preparing ourselves to be in that marketplace. And that's so important to the partnerships that we create and that we're involved in, because too many times banks and processors enter into a vertical that they don't thoroughly understand. They haven't weighed the risks. And, the bottom falls out on the entire ecosystem that they tried to create for that marketplace. And that we try very, very hard to avoid that.
Something else that really makes us different too in the competitive landscape is that we are, of course, a large company, but we've been able to tailor this and build it so that the ecosystem is very supportive. to all of our clientele. And I think that's so different than so many other players in the game. Can you kind of talk about, as you've built WAS, the different pieces that you've really tried to maintain so that, yes, we are continuing to scale, we're continuing to grow, but at the same time, we have a pulse on continuing to serve the merchants and our clients where they need to be served because
Yeah.
it's not a one size fits all approach.
No, it's not. I don't even know that you can successfully exist in a one size fits all environment anymore. You're exactly right. We choose our partnerships very wisely. You can't spend the time, energy, and money, invest in technology and relationships, and do it, recklessly. And so we look to become very, very good partners with the few that we identify with as being creative, uh, buttoned up, and with some sense
Growth
of future.
mindedness.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. We really want to understand that we don't want to. I think it's self sabotage to go on and take too much on at once, and to broaden your reach too much. And so it's really important for us to build relationships that are sustainable and that are like-minded, as you said. So it's part of the program for us.
I feel like it's been everything that we do is built with such intention. We are not trying to be the one size fits all. We're not trying to take and accept and work with everybody. We're smart in the ways that we're continuing to grow so that we can best serve those that we do work with. And that's, I think, very different in this um, highly competitive market that we exist in.
Yeah. Gosh, you say that, and I immediately, think about the race to zero. Payments has been so, kind of cannibalized by, and hurt. The merchant community has been hurt by a lot of the activities that exist around, the merchant business. And a lot of that's from a sales perspective. It's not consultative. It's not trying to fill a void. And that's why it's so important that we choose these partnerships, right? That these partnerships are good because we think that the whole process has got to be about doing more and providing solutions that use the payment as and the processing of that payment is only one piece of a very large responsibility that we have to the merchants. And I think as you frame that question, you think about our partnerships, you think about who we want to be in business with, and the ISV community and the embedded and integrated solutions community that is now embracing payments is in a position to do more. And when you're in a position to do more, you are like-minded in that you are not in a partnered with the race to zero group. You're partnered with, let's solve as much of your daily operating issues and your future growth issues as we can as your payment provider, because we're in a position to facilitate those things by the business intelligence that comes from the daily payment processing, from keeping your payments safe, by keeping you compliant. That that whole um, that that whole product offering is something that the merchant community is due from us. And
Yes.
and and we need to and our partnerships need to look like they're filled with those who think exactly like that.
Well, they always say you get what you pay for, correct? So if you're paying nothing for something, then you're not going to get very much out of whatever that service may or may not be. But when it comes to this arena, the compliance is so important. Making sure you've got the fraud protections is so important. Making sure that you're partnered with somebody who is forward thinking, but is then taking it to that next level of we're really heavily investing in how are we going to implement AI to be able to help our larger merchants see where that timestamp data of those transactions, what that actually means. You talk about that all the time. And that data is so valuable. It's not just a
Yeah.
timestamp, it can tell a full story. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, and that's so important. Yeah, I do talk about the timestamp. It's funny. I'm getting a lot of my uh, friends and peers are making fun of that. But
Fueling the fire here.
yeah, well, yeah, it is. There's so much to what we can do, and recognizing that is really important to us. Um, like you said, we're mainly a switch to issuer acquirer. So, people say, why do you promote switch to issuer? And there's a lot of reasons, but being in a position to take on new technology and using agentic commerce as an example, and being positioned with the card brands so that we can leverage tools, opportunities, technology. But as those things sort themselves out, who is going to be the responsible party for identifying trusted agents, for example, in agentic commerce? And and we build our partnerships and build our company around making sure that we're in a position to be able to bring the very best of those products to market day one. Um, Data, the same thing. Like, I don't believe, as many do, um, and maybe it's because I'm not technically smart enough to think of it any other way, but I don't believe in giving anybody data, but I believe in giving all of my customers the answers to the questions that they want from their data, right?
Yeah.
So what am I saying? Either like, what is he talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is, tell me what you want the data to tell you, and let me give that to you in aggregate total so that I can keep everybody safe and compliant and out of harm's way, but give you business intelligence that you need to understand today's business, chart tomorrow's business, understand your future from a business expansion perspective, keep you compliant, be of sound risk practices, but do that in a way that doesn't put you in harm's way
In terms of compliance,
in
in
terms
terms
of
of fraud,
compliance
in
and in the
terms of all of
process.
those things.
Exactly.
But
And,
we can give you that picture that you're looking for and answer those questions.
and they're achievable goals, Layla. They're not far fetched. They're achievable. They're out there. They need to be. I tell my team all the time. And you know how much I love my team, and we've been together a long time. But but I do say, tell the story,
Mhm.
because those things are available. So we need to talk to more people about what we're doing, and we're doing that. But there's ideas that come up all the time, and there's technology that's there, and we all sit back and we look at the shiny new object, but too much of it um, doesn't get commercialized
Yeah.
the way it should as soon as it should. And so it's so important
That's the
that
nature
we
of a
do that.
growing pain, though.
Yeah, it's the nature of a growing pain, but just like the aggregate total of the data story, I don't want the growing pains either. So, we just
Yep.
kind of fight through it.
Okay, so as we wrap this up, we, of course, have talked about the structural trust advantages that we have by being a subsidy of Woodforest National Bank. But now we are in the process of moving and spinning out. So talk to the audience about what that means, what that looks like for the future of Woodforest.
And we've done that before, right? And that's always the plan with us. But we have very similar shareholder composition when we spin out. So when we do things like that, we usually have the lion's share, at least, of the bank shareholders being shareholders in Newco. We do it because the fintech world can move a little more fluidly. The bank is still our number one and most recognized and coveted partnership. So not much changes that way. I think really more than anything else, it's more of a marketing thing for us to be able to move a little more fluidly. But all of the other uh, advantages, uh, you know, and obligations to the bank and to the
Still
regulatory
remain.
system are all the same. So yeah, it's just more or less the way we maneuver through the future.
I love it. Well, thank you for this episode.
It was fun. I
Um,
appreciate you.
Absolutely. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you. To learn more about the topics we discussed today or to explore more about how modern payment infrastructure can support your business, visit toddlinden.com or woodforestpay.com. Thanks for spending time with us on Beyond the Transaction.